Then he got to the edge of the cave and looked in and saw countless numbers of dragons within. But when the dragons saw him, they scattered and hid, even though the prince was just a little kid. And the prince, he couldn't believe his eyes, because to the prince's great surprise, the dragons, though many, were as small as could be. In fact, they only came up to his knee. And when they breathed fire, it was just a tiny flame that any little matchstick could put to shame. And their teeth were very sharp and white and shiny, but they were also very tiny. The teeth they had were as small as pin and wouldn't even bite through the prince's skin. So the prince walked right into the cave, just as a prince and a king should behave. And one small dragon came out looking sweet and sat on ground at the prince's feet. And the prince was convinced by this little sight that his father, the great king, was absolutely right. The fear was just like the king had said. It had all been in the prince's head. So the prince left the cave and headed back to town, and all the people saw him come down. They clapped their hands and shouted with joy that the kingdom had been saved by this boy. The prince climbed up and stood on the wall, and this is what he told them all. There's really no reason for dread. All of the fear is just in your head. The dragons, they can do nothing to us, and there really is no reason to fuss. So have no fear of a dragon attack. In fact, the dragons will never be back. And with that, all of the townspeople cheered because the prince had quelled the thing they most feared. And the prince tried to tell them the dragons were small, but they wouldn't listen to him at all. So the prince carried on protecting the town, and of course he never let them down, because the dragons were so small. They really were no threat at all. And the kingdom carried on, forever filled with laughter, and all of the people lived happily ever after. And that was the end of the dragon book. And Mikey was so glad he had taken a look. He realized something that he never knew. If you are afraid, there are things you can do. Instead of hiding or running away, stand up and face what makes you afraid. And from that day forth, Mikey changed his mind and left his fears and his worries behind. Even when he was afraid of something out there, he knew how to get control of his fear. He would stand up straight and hold his head high, and like the prince, look his fear in the eye. And that is always the best thing to do. If there is something that really scares you, don't get controlled by feelings of dread. Remember, most of the fear is just in your head. This isn't to say you won't be afraid, but you should know that fear is okay. Everyone gets nervous and has a good scare and feels like they're going into the dragon's lair. But when that happens and you don't want to go, think of the lesson the prince got to know, that when you're feeling so scared of it all, you just need to remember that the dragons are small. The end.